Okay, let's talk about anxiety, which I think is a real thing for a lot of people. And so this is not going to be your average normal stories in 4K kind of thing for me. It's a little bit different because it's not like some amazing story that just happened in my life. It's more something that is kind of an obstruction or obstacle for me that I've been carrying around forever that I have to continually work on. And I think that this is kind of a cool video to share because I think maybe if there are people out there who experience similar kind of things and they see somebody like me who's a performer and who does some of the things that I do, maybe it'll make them feel empowered to feel like they can do things, you know, that they maybe felt a little shy about doing or hesitant or, you know, afraid perhaps, because I know that a lot of what I do in my life is based in fear, believe it or not, but I turn it around into a positive thing. And so anxiety for me has always been present. And to deal with the elephant in the room, for those who know me, yes, I was adopted and I was fostered before that. I was actually fostered 3 times before I was 3 months old, which is kind of weird, but I found out I was part of like this experimental kind of program, which is a whole nother thing for another video. But I was eventually fostered by the people who wound up adopting me, my parents, and they raised me. And so yes, that kind of circumstance at the beginning of your life, that kind of chaos, that kind of madness can certainly lead to separation anxiety and all kinds of different anxieties. But I don't dwell on that much, but I also acknowledge that that could certainly be a factor in a lot of the anxiety that's in me, like at the cellular level. So anyway, I'll tell you a few stories and I'll get to the point of this video, because the point of this video is actually my social anxiety and the things that I have to do to be a performer, to deal with a lot of the situations that I put myself in professionally and personally. Because if you allow anxiety to rule you and take you over, you'll be able to do nothing. So when I was 5 years old, this is kind of a funny story, I guess, but I told my first grade teacher that she was a racist. Yeah, I was that guy, that kid. Basically what it was about was, you know, anytime anything bad happened in the class, she always blamed my friend. And I told her one day, I said, you know what? Every time anything bad happens in class, you blame, and I said his name, and then I go, and I think you do that because he's black. And the class laughed and she got really embarrassed, you know, and kind of she acted weird. And then I said, you also treat this other girl poorly, and I think you do that because she's fat. And so, anyway, what does this have to do with anxiety? She made me wait after school, and she called my mother down to the school, and we had to go to the principal's office. And I was traumatized all day, like I was mortified, petrified, scared out of my brains. Because when I was a little kid, I thought everybody was adopted, right? Like people used to say to me, when did you find out you were adopted? And I was like, I always knew, because I thought everybody was adopted, because I thought there was a baby store. And so when I was sitting in school that day waiting for my mother to come back, it occurred to me that maybe they could return me to the baby store. And I was absolutely, like I said, traumatized at the thought of being returned. Which sounds kind of cute and funny, right? But it wasn't cute or funny to me. Sorry, there's bees flying around here. I mean, I was really scared. So obviously that didn't happen, but I thought about that a lot in my younger years, you know, and my parents, you know, when I came up with this idea, it was my idea that there was a baby store. They just kind of let me roll with that, you know, until I learned how babies were born eventually, you know. But that was kind of a weird thing to carry around. Anxiety. And I was always I was a very quiet, shy, solitary, loner kind of kid. And I continue to be that as an adult. You know, I'm still that to this day. You know, people who know me know I'm pretty solitary. You know, I hang out by myself. I don't really have tons of friends. The friends that I do have are like family to me, but I don't hang out in any crowds. I got no cliques. I don't ever feel a part of any community, really, you know. And I think as a result of my anxiety, I don't think that I'm welcomed in many communities sometimes, and I'll get to that in a little bit. So anyway, let's fast forward to when I was in high school. Interesting story is that I spent 2 years going through all this testing when I was a junior and a senior in high school to try to get into the United States Naval Academy. And I won a congressional nomination, and I got into Annapolis, the Naval Academy, which is a really difficult thing to do, and it's a great honor. And it's really, you know, it's a pretty cool accomplishment. Of course, I didn't really want to go because I didn't want to be in the military. I just wanted to see if I could get in. And so the anxiety started when I realized now I got to tell everybody I don't want to go. And so I got past that. But then I started, you know, visiting schools and doing recruiting trips and all the things that kids do when they're getting ready to get out of high school. And I visited a school out in western Pennsylvania. And when I got back to my house, I got this massive muscle spasm, and I mean, I couldn't breathe. I was in incredible pain. I had to be carried into my house. And I don't know what, it felt like there was a truck on my chest, you know, and also if you touched me, it felt like electric shocks going up and down my body. And as a result, I missed the entire second semester of my senior year of high school. I was in bed. And my mother took me to every kind of doctor you could imagine, you know, neurologist, orthopedist, you know, everybody, like every, you know, blood specialist, oncologist, everybody. And nobody could figure it out. And one doctor told my mother it was all in my head. But whatever it was, I was completely disabled. And so I got well enough to get to my graduation. And then over the summer, as I started to get a little bit better, I wound up going to school in Colorado and I played football. So obviously I was well enough to get banged around playing major college football. But nobody ever knew what that was. And I carried that trauma with me forever, you know, for my whole life. Always worried that that might happen again. You know, I'm constantly like touching my chin to my chest to make sure I don't have that kind of pain in my chest. And I mean, still to this day, and that was many years ago, more years than I want to admit. So, more anxiety. Now I'm going to fast forward to my current life. So I was in the music business for a long time, you know, 25 years. And my life, at a certain point, started to completely fall apart. But the biggest thing that happened at that time was that my mother, who raised me, died. Now, my father had died many years before that when I was younger. But I wasn't attached. I didn't have any relationships with any cousins or uncles or aunts or anybody like that. So when my mother died, it was like the last remnants of my adoptive family, this family that I always looked at as the people who saved my life. They were all gone now. And I felt like I was a foster child again, like I was just out here again, all by myself, attached to nobody. Like I felt like a little kid again. It was weird. And so I went through a lot of kind of spiritual chaos in my soul. And I decided to leave the music business because the thing was, even though I was a really good musician, you know, I wrote over 500 songs. I started as a jazz player. I played guitar, taught myself how to play the piano. I played drums. I had great bands, like amazing bands, you know. I played with I got to work with some of the greatest musicians in the world. I toured a lot. It was a dream, you know, and I made enough money to earn a living. I was working as a studio musician, a singer, a background singer. You know, I wasn't wildly successful, but I was good. You know, I was earning a living. I eventually worked as a producer. I was doing a lot of stuff. Pretty prolific. But I felt nothing. Even though music was incredibly spiritual for me, I felt nothing because I am by nature a social activist, and I felt like I couldn't really express myself the way I wanted to in the music business. It wasn't really celebrated that way, you know, like even though I started as a jazz player, people were trying to turn me into a pop star, you know, and so there were really no Bob Dylans or Gil Scott-Herons in the world anymore. I mean, you know, maybe a lot of hip hop artists do that kind of work, but I wasn't a hip hop artist, and so I felt stunted, you know, I felt obstructed in that business. I didn't feel a part of anything. I just felt like I was trying to be a celebrity, which I could care less about. You know, I just always wanted to do great work. You know, I was always trying to push myself to be the best artist that I could possibly be. And so many years before that, I was lucky enough to see Whoopi Goldberg do her one-person show on Broadway. And I remember at that time, this was like maybe 15 years before this, I remember looking at her going, wow, that's what I should be doing. Like, she was speaking about really important issues, and it was this amazing work, and it looked beautiful on stage, and I just felt really compelled by that. And so I decided that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be a solo theater artist, even though I had no idea what I was doing. But I knew I could do that. I don't know why, but I just knew. So I had finished an album, and the album was well received by a lot of people, and but everybody thought it kind of sounded like it was very often that I heard people going, this feels like a play. And so I kind of created a performance piece, really. So I started to turn it into that, and I started developing a play, which became my first play, Broke Wide Open. And so what I did was I started developing that play out in the streets in front of people and stuff. I mean, I wasn't like the guy getting on the train going, ladies and gentlemen, look at me, look, like I didn't do that. I would find a park, I would work in a place out of the way from everybody, and people would hear me talking to myself or whatever, and they would come over and watch, and sometimes they would ask, like, what are you doing? I would tell them I'm developing a play, and they'd be like, oh wow, can I watch? Can I check it out? And you know, eventually I went from like a couple of people watching me to having 50 people show up in lawn chairs for me to rehearse a 2.5-hour play, and then conducting Q&As out in the street. And eventually that play became a off-Broadway play, and I ran it for almost 6 months, 8 shows a week. Amazing. But back to anxiety. I started developing that show in poetry clubs. Now, this was kind of weird because I had never even read a poem, let alone written one, you know. But I was writing, and a friend of mine saw some of the stuff that I was writing, and she was like, yo, this is great poetry. This is like spoken word. You should go to these clubs, you know. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You know, she goes, you can go to a slam. And I didn't even know what a poetry slam was. I thought a slam was like people making fun of each other. So anyway, she took me to one of the clubs, and I performed one of my pieces there. And I got a really great response. And then everybody told me, they said, yo, you should go to the Nuyorican. You should go to Nuyo. And I'm like, I never even heard of the Nuyorican. But the next night, I went to the Nuyorican Poets Cafe on East 3rd Street in Manhattan on the Lower East Side. And I waited in line. I didn't know anybody there, obviously. Walked into the club, packed, crazy. The energy was like really powerful. And I was feeling pretty solitary there, for sure. So I saw people were signing up for this list, so I put my name on this list. I didn't even know what that meant, to be honest, but I assumed it meant I'm gonna perform. And sure enough, a bunch of people did some poems, and it was really kind of a cool environment. And most of them were doing really meaningful work, you know, speaking about important things, and I was really inspired by it. And then the host, whose name was Jive Poetic, pretty good guy, very supportive, very positive, you know, really a great host, like somebody who made everybody feel important. He was really good to me. Brought me up on stage, first time ever. And you know, I had been performing live music for many, many years, but I'll tell you, I was not nervous. I was scared, like crazy, mad scared, you know, like I remember sweat was going down the back of my legs and my pants. I was petrified. But I did my piece, you know, and I went up there. The place was packed. It's a pretty cool stage. The Nuyorican is like the Yankee Stadium of poetry. It's like the Mecca. So I really was honoring that in my spirit, you know what I mean? Like I was so grateful to be there, and I was really acknowledging that this was really something important for me. And again, I was there by myself. I didn't know anybody. I didn't talk to anybody because I have real social anxiety with talking to people that I don't know. And so I performed for the first time, and I finished my piece. Now, I performed, it was like blazing fast, loud, passionate. I was crying at the end of it. It was a piece about my adoption. And when I finished, dead silence. Nobody said a word. That club, you could have heard a pin drop. And I was like, oh shit. And then it erupted. Like I got this incredible response. It was crazy. And this is kind of the point of my video today, but in that moment, I remember standing there thinking, oh shit, this is why I was born. Like, this is why I'm on this earth, this right here, like doing this. This is the reason that I'm here. Because I often used to wonder, you know, in that poem, I actually said, and I know I don't feel like this anymore, but I actually said that, you know, speaking to my biological mother, I said to her, sometimes I wish you had aborted me. And I did feel that way for much of my life, because I felt so out of place all the time. So anyway, that was an amazing moment for me. And so what I started to do after that, as I was developing my play, is I started going to all these poetry clubs every night. I performed 7 nights a week for 3 years, developing this play. It was this place called Bar 13 on Monday nights, the Bowery Poetry Club on Tuesday nights, New Year on Wednesday, New Eurekan on Friday if I won the slam on Wednesday. I'd go to all these other places out in the outer boroughs, up in the Bronx, Books in the Hood, Soul Sweet Sanctuary, places in Brooklyn, Queens, everything. I found a mic every single day. And it was so crucial to my development as an artist. But here's the thing. I wasn't really well received by the other poets. Now, at the New Yo, I kind of was. There was a community of people there that did accept me, and I have to thank and shout out this guy named Tongo Eisen Martin, who's a very well-known poet and activist right now. He kind of he spoke to me right away the first time he saw me, and nobody else had talked to me at all. And he really gave me some affirmation and acknowledgement, and it meant so much to me because, again, I'm a loner, I was very solitary. I wasn't getting that from anybody. But I have to say that a lot of the other poets, especially in these other clubs, they didn't like me. I could feel that. And I could kind of understand it because I didn't really speak a lot, you know, and I didn't talk, and I'm not somebody who puts a big smile on his face, and I kind of wear my feelings on my sleeve, and so I probably looked the way I was feeling, which was kind of out of place. And so I think, well, I know that people thought I was kind of pompous, or, you know, I heard somebody once said to me, yo, you know, like so-and-so said, you have this overinflated view of yourself, or whatever. Because, you know, when you say things behind people's back in communities like that, it always gets back to the person that was spoken about. But, you know, I didn't think anything of it really because I was just shy. And so I'm saying this to say that, first of all, if you see somebody who you think is a certain kind of way, because people had very strong opinions of me without even ever having a conversation with me, like they didn't know me at all. If you ever feel that, you know, have a little bit of empathy and think maybe this person is going through some stuff, or maybe they're just shy. Maybe they're out of place, you know. You know, maybe they're not conceited or pompous or whatever you might think. But the other thing that people didn't think about was, because of the anxiety that I've been carrying around with me my whole life, it took so much for me to get up on stage. Like, it took a lot. I'm going to pause this for 1 second because it looks to me like this monitor is getting dark because the sun went in. So I'm going to pause this and I'm going to be back in 1 second. So hold that thought. Okay, so sadly, I had to finish this video at home in my apartment because when I paused and went back to shoot the rest of the video, I had changed the aperture on my lens, and suddenly the autofocus was like hunting all over the place. I was using a different lens before. I was using the Tamron 17-70, and I got to say that the autofocus on that lens sucks. Like, it's terrible at a wide open aperture of 2.8. I mean, if I go to 5.0 or above, or like the circumstances have to be perfect for the autofocus to be good on that lens. So, you know, as has been well documented on my channel, I'm not a big fan of zoom lenses to begin with. I just like to have one good one just in case I might need one. So I have it, but trust me, I'm not going to be using autofocus on that lens at all. So I digress. Anyway, now just to get it out of the way, I'm using a Samyang 12mm f2. It's a manual lens. I know it's in focus, and I can finish this story. And so, as I was saying, I wonder if all of those poets actually knew what it took for me to get on stage every day. Like how much anxiety I actually carry in my life all the time. You know, I don't think so. I don't think that there was a lot of empathy there. You know, I think that, you know, like I said, people said things about me and it got back to me. And there were people who, as I said, had these very strong opinions about me who literally had never had a conversation with me ever. And I'm not sure I said that in the first half of this video now, but I just want to make that point. Like, don't have a strong opinion about anybody unless you're having an opinion about their work, their craft, whatever they do. But personal opinions, if you don't know somebody, that's kind of crazy, right? That's not right. That can be very hurtful. So, but I'll get back to me and say that I used my anxiety to my advantage my whole life. And how I did that was I work a lot out of fear. And that sounds kind of negative and it sounds like something you should never do. But see, I was driven by the fear of failure, the fear of not being good enough, of not being accepted, of, you know, just being like everybody else. Like I always had a fear of being forgotten, you know, being forgettable. My father actually asked me once when I was young, what do you want? What do you want to be? And I said, unforgettable. And so that's what I strive for as an actor, as a theater artist, as anything I do. I want to make sure that however you feel about me, you never forget me. And so I prepare like crazy. Like I can comfortably say that I would doubt very seriously that you could find somebody, anybody, who works harder than me, period. Full stop. I got that Kobe mentality. I work so hard on everything that I do. I mean, when I'm on stage in a theater, an airplane could come flying through the ceiling, the lights could go out, the sound could go out, somebody could have a heart attack, God forbid. I mean, anything could happen. Nothing will fuck me up on stage. Like I have my words, I have the story, I have this incredible command of it, and it's because I am so prepared. Because I have to deal with my anxiety to even get on stage. You know, it's like I get these heart palpitations sometimes. I go through a lot, you know. Although ironically, once I get on stage, for me, that is the safest place on earth. It's literally the place that makes me feel the most at home, but it's getting there that's really, really difficult for me. So when I'm prepared, obviously it's much easier. And I was like that when I played sports and everything. Like I just work so hard. I promised myself a long time ago, no negotiating, no bullshit. Do not ever, ever be outworked. There's no excuse to be outworked. And that is all due to my anxiety. And so I guess the point of this whole video is that moment that I had at the Nuyorican where I stood on stage and I felt like, oh my God, this is why I was born. Like, I just think that I am the luckiest person in the world to have found the reason that I'm here, the reason that, like, there's no doubt in my mind. Like, you can't tell me anything. I know that this is why I was born. To be a performer, to be a theater artist, to be a filmmaker, to do the things that I do, to share my work, but to express myself as who I am. This social activist, this deep thinker, this loner, you know, this solitary person, solo artist, solitary human being. And again, like I said, I have friends, but they're like family to me, and I don't have a lot of them. I can count them on one hand. But I've never been a part of a clique. I've never felt a part of a community, really. And I honestly don't think I've been embraced by any community, really. And I think it's because it's been hard for me to connect. And like I said, I couldn't even talk to people without my face shaking for many, many years. And the theater, the place that I feel is why I was born, took that away from me, which is a good thing. You know, I feel much more comfortable engaging with people now, doing interviews, meeting people at the theater or anywhere, in the store, in the bodega, whatever. It's just enhanced my life. And so I'm just going to say, if you have a lot of anxiety, stick with it. You know, just work hard. You know, it sounds like such a cliche, but do your best. Like, be the best you can absolutely be. I mean, I am not one to ever talk about myself in my work. I never say, I'm the greatest, come see me, my work is the best, my show is the best. Like, I never ever say that. I promote the hell out of my shows and I try to get you to come, but I talk about the story, or I talk about the community that would be created that night in a sacred performance space with a whole lot of people from all kinds of different backgrounds sharing this beautiful story together with me. But I don't talk about myself. And that's because that's for the audience to do. But I work hard, and I know that what I put out there is my best. Like anytime somebody comes to see me perform, I make no apologies for that. That's my best. Now, I might have had better nights or whatever, in my opinion, but I know that on that particular night, I could not have done any better. And I feel proud of that all the time. So that's one part of this. And the other part of this video is if you are somebody who engages with somebody and they feel a little strange, like they make you feel uncomfortable, they make you feel like kind of, unnerved a little bit, and you have this strong opinion about them and it starts to go negative because you're kind of like you don't know what to think or how to figure them out. Don't go negative, like have a little bit of empathy. Think about like where they might have been or what they're going through. Maybe this person is just painfully shy and not stuck up, not conceited, but maybe they're incredibly insecure. Maybe they're working through an incredible amount of anxiety. Everything in life is about empathy. Being a great artist is about empathy. Being a great person is about empathy. Everything is about empathy. So I guess that's what this video is about. Finding your empathy, which can help you get through your anxiety. So now I think this video is getting a little bit long, so I'm going to stop here. So please subscribe. And please hit the like button if you like this video and if you like these stories that I tell. Like I said, I'm going to continue to do these through the end of August, right until September 1st or wherever it lands in the week, the end of August. And then we'll see where it goes from there. And as an aside, I just want to share that finally my movie, The Center of Distance, is going to be available to the public early 2023. We're finally through all the festival stuff, and we're going to do a screening, a private screening early winter, probably sometime late November, early December, something like that. Might do 2 screenings, and then I'll find some place to make it available to the public. Whether that be a major distribution place or whatever, it will be available and you'll be able to watch it if you so choose to do that, which would make me feel happy, and I'll be so grateful to share it. So thanks again for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Have a beautiful night or day or whenever you're watching this, and take care of yourself and take care of one another. Peace.